Okay. So are we good, Karen?
Yes.
All right, we'll call the meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. Let's see. So following our agenda for tonight, the first thing we'll do is the Pledge of Allegiance. Doug, care to start?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty
and justice for all.
Thank you, Doug. Rotate that privilege around. So next, could we do a roll call, please? Karen?
Doug,
Here.
Karen,
Here.
John,
Here.
Gary, Mike.
Here. And as far as the agenda goes for tonight, there was some discussion. Jerry, we've got 4 items related to the HR committee, items 4, B, C, and D. We have are we ready for those, or are we going to kick those?
I think we can probably pick those up this week.
All right, so recognizing 4B and C will be deferred to a future meeting. Can we get a motion to approve the amended agenda?
Make a motion to approve the amended agenda.
Doug, aye.
John.
Mike, aye.
Motion carries with 5. And we'll open with citizen comment, and we're happy to have a few on virtually and a few in-house as well. Is there anybody that wants to address the council before we get into the rest of the agenda? All right, hearing nothing, we will go then next into the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second that. Doug, aye.
John, I.
Mike, aye.
Motion carries with 5. Next up is the public hearings. First is the public hearing for the fiscal year 22 maximum property tax. This is in compliance with a state requirement that we have a public hearing to publicly speak about and share what our maximum tax levy could be. This is not what our tax levy will be. So that's important to be clear about. It's easy to misunderstand what that is. And as far as, so to be clear, $8.10 per thousand is the maximum allowable levy for the general fund. We are not planning to increase our current total levy, which is general debt or general obligation plus debt service for fiscal year 22. The notice of public hearing was published on February 11th. Whitney, what other narrative does this need?
No, I mean, you really hit the high points here. It's just this new requirement of the legislature, and it sort of realized what the state was trying to do here. So we are just showing what is allowable under the state code for the city to collect for these items, which unfortunately are not, they're not inclusive of all the items. It's very confusing to present publicly, but this just shows max dollars that have been brought into the city for these specific items. So by law now, once this has been published, any budget the city adopts cannot exceed this. So all this really does is set an absolute ceiling for these items, not for any other items like debt service, but just for these items, anything we would choose to do cannot exceed.
So being a public hearing, this will be an opportunity for any members of the public to speak regarding this. So we'll open the public, this is a public hearing, right? So we'll open the public hearing. If anybody in the room wants to speak or online, please just unmute yourself.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second. Doug, aye.
Karen, I.
John, I.
Mike, aye.
All right, public hearing is closed with 5. Next then is the resolution approving the fiscal year 22 max levy. And as in the board docs, we've got in here that the maximum property tax dollars and for the affected tax levies for fiscal year 21-22 shall exceed 1.334809. So 1,334,809. We could take a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion approving the resolution, approving the maximum tax dollars from certain levies.
I'll second.
Doug, aye.
Karen, I.
John, I.
Jerry, aye.
Mike, aye.
Karen, what number is that resolution?
We haven't been numbering at the meeting just to avoid confusion.
All right, that concludes the public hearing section. Next up, under administration, we've got a report from the Peosta Fire Department. So we've got 2 representatives here. Gentlemen, if you would like to address the council, we would love to hear what you've got to report.
Well, this being our first time we're doing this, we're kind of going off the cuff here, but I'm Fire Chief Jack Cates. This is Andrew Cates, Assistant Chief. Just like to say thanks for the invite. It's kind of a neat thing to do. Thank you guys for your service and support. I'm sure not unlike us, your job is as thankless as ours sometimes. So we just started with a brief history of the department. I don't know how many, I know most of you guys in the room, some of you have been on the department at various events together. Our department was started in 1947. There was a group of farmers around the area that bought a pound of coffee, believe it or not, and raffled it off. And that's the money that they used to buy their first truck. There's one surviving member of the original department left. That's my dad. He's going to be 99 this year. So that's how it all started up in the little bitty station in Centralia. We gradually kept adding trucks and equipment and people to the fleet. In 1992, we figured out that Peosta was probably going to surpass Centralia on population and industry and things like that. So we did build a station down here in 92. I think Karen, you were around at that time, weren't you?
Not yet.
Not quite, Frank was yet? Okay, so after we built the bigger station, I mean, we were amazed just to have more than one garage door. So we bought a lot of more trucks. There's a group called the ISO. They are the people that give us our fire rating. That's what people's insurance, industry's insurance ratings are. About the highest you could go at the time was a 9, a rating of 9. In 1994, with all the new equipment and new stations and new people, we decided to get it re-rated. We went from a 9 to a 5 at that time. Other things, we started transporting patients. We got an ambulance in 2004. Prior to that, Epworth and Asbury did our transports. We had a first responder EMS service. We would go and just be first responders, and then another ambulance would come and take our patients to the hospital for us. In 2004, we moved to get an ambulance. We now have 2 ambulances. Obviously, with the way Peosta's growing, we decided it was time that we had to do that on our own instead of relying on other departments. So that's been a great move for us. And I think it was 2017, I'm sure you've all seen it, we bought a ladder truck to keep up with Peosta's growth. And in was it 2019 or 2020, we added Barrington Station. 19, we opened a third station in Barrington Lakes. So we have an engine over there now as well. So with the ladder truck and the Barrington Lake Station, just this past October, we got our ISO rating from a 5 to a 4. And that will help everybody's insurance rates. We missed a 3 by like one number, so we're gonna work really hard on that and get down to that. That's about as low as you can get for a volunteer department. Last night, we spent some time making a call review for you. He thought I was bringing it. I thought he was bringing it. So I can email that to you. We might have already sent it. Did it come with that letter?
Yeah, I know we had, yep.
Okay, so it's not a big deal. Community involvement.
So each year in the community, we do several events. Most often during fire safety week, we'll go around to each of the schools, Seton and the public school. I think we get to the daycare and MCC and stuff. Give a little bit of fire safety and expose the kids to what firefighters look like when they're out here and all that stuff. We also do the farm safety days in the summer at NICC. They didn't do that this year, but typically we do. I think we often do CPR classes for some of the community members throughout the year. I think we might have done some of them here.
We've trained the community center employees.
And then we're going to start being a little more proactive in getting around to each of the businesses in the community and developing more thorough pre-fire plans and working with the business owners in the community to do that.
Sure. So one of the hot topics, of course, for 2020 was COVID, as everybody knows. It has changed it changed everything about us as well. Our response, our gatherings, our fundraisers, everything. So we just made a little list of how that has affected us and how we are handling it. Obviously, a lot of extra training on how to protect ourselves and the community, our patients, everybody. A lot of more supplies that we had to buy, our personal protective equipment, gowns, masks, and all the physical precautions that we have to take. Last spring, most of you probably remember, this was shortly after probably a month after what am I trying to say? The quarantining started. We were kind of worried about psychological effects of being quarantined and what's going through, are we going to live through this? Is it going to kill us all or what? We were talking about it and we thought one great thing to do to raise spirits, we took our ladder truck around with a big flag to 4 or 5 areas in the community. We raised it up. We got great feedback from that. It lifted people's spirits, and that was really what it was all about. So that worked good. When all the restaurants and everything closed, a lot of the departments, this wasn't just us. We did birthday parades for the kids, birthday drive-bys. So if you heard us going through your subdivisions, lights and sirens, we apologize. Kids we got Zoom going, same as you guys do for our meetings and training, so that we can socially distance, and those that weren't comfortable taking part in person could Zoom in and do all that. And we actually purchased, how much did we spend on our new software? A few $1,000s, I think. It helps us, helps us do our remote training better. It's actually a software that's engineered for remote training and in-person training.
It's just a great resource in general.
Yeah.
Moving forward to. So current projects that we're kind of working on right now, we're in the process of ordering new turnout gear. The gear we've got was close to 15 years old, and it's recommended that you replace it every 10 years. So we were overdue for that. We're also in the process of purchasing a new ambulance. It's been over a year that we've been working on that. It's probably been a year and a half. During COVID, with changes in funding and everything, we ended up pushing it back a little bit. We lost our auction. We weren't sure if we were going to have the money to do it, stuff like So that's been a work in progress, but we do have it ordered and we're supposed to take delivery of it October-ish. Our board is ordering a chassis for our next fire engine. We replace our main engines on a 3-year rotation. We have 4 of them. The oldest one is 12 years old. So we keep them, replace one every 3 years to maintain that. Then the last project, not really ours, but that's going on, Corey Bird's is in the Scouts, and he reached out to us to do monument near the station. He's actually doing the Eagle Scout project with that, so I thought we mentioned that.
Believe it or not, the ambulances cost as much as the big red trucks, but 4 out of 5 calls are ambulance calls, so that kind of justifies it. We spend a lot more time in the ambulance than we do in the fire. They're very, very expensive. So our long range goals on the departments, I just listed a couple here. I didn't go into, I don't want to keep you here all night, but probably in the next 5 years, part of the reason that we got our ISO number lower, added the ladder truck to the fleet, which also does have the large pump and extra pump capacity and stuff like that. So it is a 94, I believe. So once they get 30 years old, they kind of drop off in protection class. So probably in the next 5 years, we do need to look at upgrading that. And our other long range goal that I listed here is just trying to keep up with you guys, trying to grow as fast as the city is and keep everything in perspective with you guys. Obviously, as you guys grow, we have to as well, which is good. It's a great thing.
So this last year has been a little bit of a ride as far as funding goes. Taxes, the townships kind of revamped how they distribute the money, so it's more based on the houses that are actually in the fire district. So we got a little bit of an increase in what we get out of the townships over the last year, just based on the houses in our district as opposed to the other surrounding departments that also have coverage in those townships. As far as grants go, we applied for the FEMA grant last year for turnout gear. They ended up canceling that with the increased demands of COVID and everything. So we didn't receive that at all. We did apply for FEMA again just earlier this month. We submitted that, and we actually did receive a grant through the county, the Hancock grant for $25,000, which will help offset the $50,000 cost of the gear that we're purchasing this go around. We had to cancel our auction last fall. That resulted in us losing $45,000 to $50,000, which is a pretty significant portion of our budget. But as far as fundraisers, we just had our breakfast, as many of you probably know, and we had overwhelming support. We had served 1,100 when we typically serve 7, and I think we usually bring in $7,000, and we actually were pushing $17,000 now.
Awesome. It was incredible.
It was great. And I'm sure some of that's because of not having the auction, people came through and donated. So I would expect to keep seeing that. And it helps definitely offset losing that auction. It gets us started towards making up for some of that income that we lost. At this time, obviously, we don't know if we can have our auction in the fall yet. We're going to continue to evaluate and hope we'll do something to generate some income, but hard telling what we'll be doing at that point. So I guess the only other part of our budget that I thought I mentioned is I did see in your budget that that you're discussing tonight that you had, I think it increased like from 5,000 to 10,000 they typically give to the ambulance fund. And I was actually really excited to see that. As we talked about earlier, the ambulance is a huge part of our annual budget. Just to give you an idea, we're budgeting $45,000 per year just to keep our ambulances up to date. We spend another $15,000 on the big ticket equipment in those ambulances every year to keep them up to date. And the supplies that we go through every year are another 15,000. So that's a total of 75,000 per year that ambulance service kind of costs us. So seeing the increase there is definitely helpful. We really appreciate the city's support in that regard.
That's pretty much all that we have to just openly tell you about. We have a couple questions here. Is there anything that you guys, as the council, see coming in the next couple of years that we need to be preparing for?
Industry
Yeah,
people coming in, senior living or big growth in the community, just general, anything that we should be aware of.
senior living. I don't know if that's still in the prospect for up north of town or not, but that would be a big thing for us because it's obviously
Yeah,
senior
so
living.
I think that's probably more than a year out. So the next biggest in terms of concentrated residential college students apartment complex that's slated for the high. I think this is a good conversation we could probably take offline. That's probably will be the next largest thing. We do have some, I think we'll have some interesting commercial projects. Nothing real large scale, probably until our, from an industrial perspective, until the lagoons are decommissioned, that land is open for development. So that would be down there. But yeah, I would say over the next 5 years, that would be really important for our relationship to stay strong. So I think, yeah, I mean, sometimes we, we're kind of along for the ride to this development, whether we're ready for it or not. But
Yep.
I think that, yeah, this is that's why we're really glad to have you here. We are certainly, I know I personally am very thankful for how you guys are very self-sufficient, which is not
We try.
all, it's, yeah, I mean, yeah, you guys do fantastic and we really appreciate that. But yeah, I mean, I think we're poised for some significant different types of growth over the next 5-10 years. So
So it'll be great to keep an open line of
yeah,
communication so that we can prepare as you guys prepare as well, so we can keep up.
One thing that crossed my mind, I don't know if any of your members are engaging with our comprehensive planning process, but in March, we'll have a public rollout of that. We should make sure that you're
Yeah.
involved in that, because that'll give you the best view of where the community's mind is at as far as development. So that would be really good to make sure you're engaged in.
Yeah. That would be
We can help support that. What about the rest of the council?
I think it would be good to have, whether quarterly or biannually, just sit down, this is what we've got going, this is what we see. Because I think that the next 2 to 3 years is gonna be exciting.
Yeah.
So I think it's important that as we get excited on our end, that you guys are prepared also.
right.
So I think maybe we could schedule that. I don't know if quarterly right now is probably too soon.
a couple times a year would probably be good. And now that I think now we have my cell phone number, I have your cell phone number, so we can, yeah, I mean, just feel free to contact myself or I know any. Yeah, if we plan to meet regularly, I think that would be a good foundation and then we can reach out as needed.
It's really great to have a good relationship with the council. I mean, there's a lot of departments, not a lot, some departments around the
Lots of
County.
probably fair.
they're constantly at odds trying to get every penny they can, and it's great that you guys are offering it without us even asking for more. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah, no,
And it makes everybody smile, I hope, does us.
I mean, provision of EMS service is something small communities struggle with across the state.
It
To the
is.
point that the legislature is trying to deal with it because there's communities that cannot get ambulance service. So I'm thankful I've lived in that world and I've been down that road and it's
Or just struggle with the volunteers.
Yeah.
They have great volunteers here.
There's Farley Dyersville, for example, their services, I think they've got a few paramedics. We're lucky to have,
Very few.
yeah, we've got like a dozen, so I mean, we're pretty well staffed. We have paramedics on almost every one of our calls. It's great to be able to provide the service we do. We're pretty proud of what we can do.
Is there anything the city can do for you guys right now?
Nothing pops into my head. Andrew put a note in here about city supporting the businesses that support us, I guess I would, do you guys put out a newsletter?
We do monthly.
Maybe just thank people on our behalf for the support that they have shown us for the breakfast and, you know, just the emotional support, you know, when we drive down the street, people wave, and that's huge. That keeps our batteries charged as well.
You guys have another fundraiser like the breakfast planned?
The next one will be the auction, if we can do it. A lot depends on what happens between now and then, I guess. Hopefully we can do it because, yeah. It's a ton of work, but.
Well, we got a lot of weddings we're planning to host before your auction.
I don't know, we'll see. We are going to be sending out a newsletter of our own in the next couple months, probably. We've been working on the draft of it for quite a while. But yeah, hopefully we get that out soon, and we're gonna put some links in that to donate, like, Facebook and.
Can we put that on our website?
Sure.
Put that on our website.
Yeah, we can do that. That'd be great. So I guess that's pretty much all we have. If you guys have any other questions for us?
I'd like to thank you guys for your time and service. I've been on volunteer fire department for 15, 18 years where I come from, and I know it takes a lot of time away from families. And one of my wife's big worries was when you go, they don't know if you're coming back, you know.
That's true.
So if there's anything that we can do as a council to help you guys out, we got full knowledge here from people.
Very much appreciate that.
Don't be scared to reach out.
We will.
Also,
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, guys. So we'll look forward to keeping a regular cadence of this.
Yeah.
And, I had one other question, if I may. You said the ISO rating's a 4, almost a 3. What has to change to get that 3?
That's part of the reason that we talked about in improving our pre-incident planning. That is a big one. Training, that's part of the reason that we got the $4,000 training software that we could have done a little bit better on.
Big part of the rating is the city's water system. I think that shook out really well.
That is real good.
Having the reports, and I think their annual reports, and having records of those annual reports is a huge part of our rating, and the fact that all those records, we were able to come up with all those records this time around, which is great. So continuing to do that. I think response times is one of the things that's big. Hopefully, I mean, we weren't bad. We did really good, but maybe it's something that we can improve on.
When I say we missed it by 1 point, what I mean, that doesn't mean obviously 3 is one lower than 4, but what that means is you get scored on a 0 to 100 scale. So 90 to 100 is a 1, 80 to 90 is a 2, 70 to 80 is a 3. We scored like 69 points. So if we would have went from 69 to 70, we would have gotten that 3. So it's not like we have huge ground to make up, but 1 point.
And I'm understanding it's not one thing you can point to and say, there's our.
No, unfortunately.
Naive question.
Oh, that's a good question.
Yes.
And I'm glad that it was asked, because it's definitely a goal of ours to continue to improve.
Yep. And we'll absolutely take the action to make sure that you're connected with the comprehensive planning rollout.
Yeah, that would be great.
That'd be great, not just to have you see, but also get your.
Yep, and actually fire prevention is another big thing in the ISO rating, so we might be able to use that, some of that, and, you know, maybe we can do more community things like that, so.
Sounds great. Great. All right. Well, thanks for making the first now annual.
Next one will be
Update.
shorter.
Good point. All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Thanks for your
Thank you.
community.
Yep, you're allowed to.
Now you gotta stay to the end.
All right. Following the CPFD report, we've got the next three items which we deferred for a future meeting. So that takes us right down to 4E, which is the RDG Professional Services Agreement, Professional Service Agreement. And I believe we have a guest speaker for that.
Would you like me to give you an overview?
Yes, please. A little narrative usually goes good with these items.
Well, thank you. My name is Ryan Peterson. I work with RDG Planning and Design and have had the privilege of working with you over the past 6 to 8 months as we've thought about a comprehensive plan and the parks master plan. And we've heard from many of you during the input sessions when we had a work session here, and then as we've had public engagement meetings online. And throughout that planning effort, ideas emerged for a town center and a park that also happened to align with some of your regional stormwater management goals. And so with that, we've been working with the city administrator, Whitney Bethke, and Mr. Mayor, thank you, to put together a proposal to help you take this 1,000-foot view that is currently in the comprehensive plan and actually think about how much earth you might need to move, refine the layout of the town center, think a little bit more critically about how big does the splash pad need to be, how big does the pond need to be, and really get down to the point where you can make budget decisions about land acquisition and understand what the potential impacts are on your community. And so the proposal that was provided in your packet walks you through, bridges the gap between that 1,000-foot comp plan, park plan level down to, how many cubic yards of earth can be moved so we can do an engineering or design cost opinion. As part of the process, there's really two distinct projects. One is the town center master plan and design guidelines. Those two are the first line item on the proposal. And those two will get you to the point where we're laying out general circulation, roadways, footprints and buildings. We'll also identify character images that can help you make decisions when you go about seeking developer interest. And so what we're trying to do by folding in the second portion, which is the park schematic design, is make sure that your investment, your capital improvement, or your grant dollars, or your investment within that park will also be the development next to it, the valuations of that, the fit, finish, and character will work together. And so ideally, a park can also be an economic development tool. And so ultimately, that's what this proposal seeks to do. And it'll help you have outline a vision that realistically might take 5, 10, 15 years to fulfill. But we know that there is tremendous energy here, and it's at a point in time where we need to take the next step to really get down to the point where we're looking at some of those detailed things that we need to as part of something a cost opinion within the park itself. And so if you have questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And again, thank you for the opportunity, and looking forward to our continued ongoing partnership.
Thank you, Ryan. Excuse me, questions from the council? Up here. So go ahead.
Go ahead.
So you talk about the 1,000-foot level, which is what we're realizing now. We'll have the rollout in March. And this bridging the gap down to the cost opinion level. What else would need to happen after that before we're ready to put it out for bid?
Good question. So one of the fundamental objectives of this is to identify an acquisition area for the park. And so the result of this will tell you with at a schematic level. So how big would the building be? How big would the parking lot be? How many cubic yards of concrete? It's not something that you can necessarily hand off to a contractor. The next step would be to hire a professional land surveyor once we've identified the proposed acquisition boundary, and have them survey that portion off, getting an understanding of the exact alignment of utilities, looking at potential setbacks or right-of-ways from Highway 20. And then we would take what we've learned in this exercise and move it into 40, 60, 90% plans for bidding. And so this is, there's two projects here. So there's the town center and the design guidelines and the PUD. And then there is a park master plan. The town center, the guidelines, the PUD are at a level where we want to make sure the private sector can respond to the very detailed design of the park that you would be going about. And so this, the level of detail will be higher in the park master plan that we will be getting to. So there are, this is a preliminary effort, so you still have 2 more steps or so, design development and construction documents, or depending on if you're an engineer or an architect. So if you're an
Engineers.
so if you're an engineer, you know, you're gonna have 30% plans for the park with a cost of it. If you're an architect, that's somewhat close to schematic design, maybe a little bit lower, maybe more, it just depends on who you ask. But ultimately, our objective is to make sure that when you go about, you know, seeking property, that you can do it with some reassurances, so you don't have to buy more land than you need, or less land, or if you're going to do some public infrastructure improvements like a road, you don't wish you had more soil in one spot over here, but in fact, we kind of looked at it in a silo. So we're trying to make sure that we look at the big picture while we get very specific with this. And so it's a long answer to a question, but basically there's 2 more steps: design development, construction documentation, and then we'd be.
So this will give us a PUD for the entire piece of land?
Correct.
So something that we'd be able to take and run with it and say, this is what we want, where we want it, how we want it.
Yes, as part of the process, we will be assembling a committee with your guidance and seeking feedback from developers or property owners as to what they would like to see, so that we're not planning in silo. We want to make sure that the market conditions that developers are seeing right now and your idea in terms of the fit and finish will be realized.
I appreciate the inclusive approach to that. I think that's really important, that we make sure we get a good representation from the community. That this ends up being a plan, the PUD, the design guidelines reflect what the community really wants, not just a few people's opinions.
Yes, and to that note, there is a planned public engagement portion where this summer, maybe June or July, if conditions are safe, or even outside, we can put up, you know, diagrams and illustrate to people and get their feedback and you know, have them weigh in more specifically on the park and even the overall development.
Yeah, I think there's going to be I expect there'll be an interest in more than just the park, but the whole design guidelines associated with that plot, that larger piece of property.
I think the approach we're taking here is kind of systematic and strategic, so that your investment, I mean, this would be the park, depending on which direction we go, would be a pretty big expenditure. So we just want to set the stage so that the private sector can realize your investment, and that's why it's linked together.
Hopefully they can piggyback off of it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and you know, based on the feedback we've received, there's a lot of interest.
So Ryan, we do good with when we have to choose between alternatives. You've got a proposal in front of us of a service, and that you're prepared to provide for us. What's the alternative to this? What do cities do if not this?
Well, there's probably 2 or 3 more approaches to a PUD. One is very aggressive, and some cities have done this in the state, where the city would acquire 80 acres, and then they would turn around and act as the developer for the project. They would send out an RFP and bring the developer on board. An example of that might be something, if you've been to Coralville, I would recommend. Sometimes that can be contentious. That is, so that's probably the most constraining approach, but yet gives you the maximum control so that your investment is protected. The approach we've taken is by developing a PUD and guidelines. It sets the stage, but guidelines are guidelines, and it identifies the intent. And so it is not saying, it's saying, if you're going to develop here, we would appreciate it if you follow these guidelines. And the private sector might push back a little bit and say, you know, instead of this, we like this. And so it's a bit more of a partnership approach. So that's what we're proposing. Kind of softer approach would be to say, we're gonna not really do a whole lot. We could one-on-one meet with a property owner that you know has the ability to develop and have them, you know, meet one-on-one, and it could be a venture that way. And that's a very traditional approach that has been used, you know, in this community and elsewhere. And so it just depends on, you know, if you've got active landowners and folks really engaged within the community that want to have a heavy hand in it, or some that might want to, you know, be kind of an investor, but may not necessarily want to be there every step of the way. And so it really depends on the property owners and the developers in that approach. Those are probably the three most common ways in which you go about doing this. There's hybrids do that, where you take an idea from one and merge it with another. You know, that might emerge as part of this process. The city might acquire a part of the property and then decide that it didn't need it. So, you know, we'll see. But this first phase is really intended to understand, you know, a little bit more specifically, you know, at a schematic level, with the cost of what we need to invest in this park, frontage road alignments, things like that.
Thank you. Anything else from the council? Staff?
I would just like to say, I think right now we're experiencing some of the side effects of not developing in this manner. For example, even on this piece of property, as we have outlying properties developed, we need to feed them utilities. So those are things, dollars we put in the ground that then are hurdles or obstacles that have to be moved. Or, you know, we have another great example of there's a right of way we'd like to continue, but there's structures in the way. So it's 95 acres is enough ground that I'm not comfortable, and I would not feel good recommending what Ryan described as that third solution, which is how the rest of Peosta has developed, because you end up with lots of access, you end up with sewer lines that then need a pond to go on top of them. So we are excited at the concept of being able to make sure these investments are made strategically and correctly. So I know we have so much opportunity in this area, and I think, as Ryan noted, we're looking 5 to 10 to 15. The reality is that this room could be filled with will likely be filled with an entirely different group of people. So this is an investment we could make to establish that intent, you know, beyond, tied to what we know public wants, because they're going to be pulled in, you know, tied to what our goals are in alignment with this 20-year comp plan. So I really can't say, and maybe Mike should probably chime in, or LaFleur should chime in. I'm not sure how planning and zoning, it would be very difficult to evaluate these with one at a time property owners, builders coming in. And we as a city would be at a complete loss. You know, you want to line your mains up to your roads, and there are the roads, and there's just a number of questions. I'm sure Dean is on the computer too. So this just provides a Bible of sorts. to guide. And we really love, I mean, I hate to let a good development opportunity pass by. So this provides me that opportunity when somebody walks into my office, which we know happens. That doesn't happen everywhere, but it happens. So, you know, I've had people tell me they want to invest money, they have some dollars to spend it. I don't typically have an answer for them for where they can do that. It hurts me on the inside, so. And this 95 acres is going to provide several different flavors, right? So if people are interested in single family or multi, or even small commercial, or just their wife want to own their own boutique, so it's different though. I know it feels different. But I know Ken and I had a good conversation today, and it's regular practice for cities to write really big checks to engineers to design the projects. This is just how this works for this type of, it's the same thing. It's just not something we typically fun.
I think I like the idea of having a roadmap.
That's what, yeah.
I mean, this is giving us a roadmap. We think we know where we want to go, but I'm not in this business, you know, to create a roadmap.
Right.
I think creating a roadmap I mean, it's just like setting goals, right? You set a goal, but you got to figure out how you're gonna get there, right? I mean, the goal without a roadmap is just a dream. So I mean, I like having a roadmap that someone comes in Whitney's office and she can say, okay, what part of this do you want? I mean, really, what part of this do you want to be participating in? These are our guidelines. Now you go do your thing and build.
To the plan, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, quite frankly, that's an advantage and something that, I mean, Ryan, you have more experience than me, that's viewed favorably from a development side, because there's some work and some legwork and some planning that is now completed. So there is some momentum built in to their investment.
Yeah, there's checks and balances, and they'll have the developer and investors will have reassurances that the city has committed to a new picture. And so they know that their investment in this 10 acres is going to be worth it or they don't know, but they have more reassurances that their investment in this 10 acres will reap the rewards of the city's investment here, which we also know is next to this investment here. And so this is very much about protecting investments that are made, but also, trying to garner more interest in investments and preserving the existing or enhancing the existing home valuations and commercial valuations within the community, so that those people have a higher quality of life, they have access to these amenities, and so I think ultimately it is about protecting that investor's dollar and making sure that it works well with what the city's vision is and collaborative.
Sorry, Mike, I cut you off.
No, it's just more confirmation from a planning and zoning side, you're spot on, right? I mean, it's having the map or the guide, right, to follow. And to your point, Ryan, if there are things you can come in and talk about kind of the exceptions or, those discussions versus here's the box, right? Fit in the box, but then we can talk about it. And I think that would be very crucial. Just, not only for this, but as we even look to the future, right? I mean, just to have that guide for us would be powerful. So, yeah.
And have anybody that comes into town that wants to develop in there, have the guidelines already.
Exactly.
They already know what they're
doing. Yeah.
Gotta have a map. Can't build a subdivision without a plat, so.
Yep.
Any other comments from the council? I'd like to see a picture hanging on our wall, size of our poster back there, a picture of the lake and what it is. So if an investor does come in, it's a big enough picture where they can see it, and so the citizens can see what we're trying to accomplish here and be able to show it off.
It's a great thought, Doug. I mean, even the image that he sent out in the, just something like that, it's powerful, right? So, good ask.
Yeah, I think we, as part of our scope of work, recognize that for some people, they need to see it to understand it. So we will have, I think we said 4 to 6 different, illustratives that focus on the park and the overall vision. In your packet, the Marion example.
Yeah.
Probably the closest one.
Page 10 or whatever. Yep.
Yep. That would be, an appropriate kind of example. And we've also, for the city of Marion, have done a PUD for this. So this is PUD, park plan, downtown plan, and streetscape plan.
So when you talk about the PUD, that encompasses essentially everything in this view of Marion. Is that right? So it's the businesses, the commercial space,
Yes.
as well as the recreation.
Yes. So it is very much based on what we've discovered during the comprehensive plan. I mean, there's a mix of uses and land uses within this 95 acres. So we're trying to find the best balance.
And Doug, I don't want to pick words, but I think it's important to be clear. You made a comment earlier about what we're trying to achieve. Just to be really clear, this whole comprehensive planning process is around not creating what we, the council, believe we ought to do, but getting that input from the community to say, here's what the community says we ought to do.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
And so this is really just that link, right? I mean, we've heard enough. Now we have good survey data. We've had some public input. So what they want, right, is that dream, John, and this is how we bridge that gap for staff implementation.
So this is an action item for the council. We need, it's up to us to take action on. So if there's any other questions or discussion on it, now's the time. Otherwise, we could entertain a motion.
Either Debbie Downer here, but how do we pay for this?
No. Yep, so we have identified probably 3 funds that have all 3 of them have the adequate cash to handle this. I would probably recommend a mix of all 3, probably franchise fees, local option sales tax. All of those would be appropriate uses.
The third one?
Park reserves.
That wouldn't cause any problems in the budget.
No, our franchise fees and lost, we don't budget aside from the, our police department. Thank you for that. Loan is-
Next year.
Yep, it's our last payment, so, yeah, I would recommend a split.
You good, John? I make the motion to approve the RDG service agreement of $123.60. I'll second. Doug, aye.
And
John, aye.
Mike, aye.
Motion carries with 5. Brian, thanks for coming in and giving the narrative to go with that. It's been good to discuss this with you.
Happy to be here and we appreciate your vote of confidence and look forward to working with you over the next 3-4 months here as we make this closer to reality. So we're very excited and are excited to kick this off and working on a schedule already. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim, would you be, since Eldon's got it, would you mind hopping that letter I up till next?
Yep, I think that's a great idea.
Fun as his son's probably having. Boy.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
sure. Good. Go right ahead. So we've got, I'll just introduce the topic here. So we're talking about the wastewater treatment facility. We've got change order number 1 in the docket. And yes, Eldon, if you would please, take us through the change order.
Yeah, this is just a general update. The project, I know, maybe not right now, it's kind of on hold until election year. But where we are right now, there is that almost all the structures and foundations and underground work related to this treatment is complete. So building foundation slab and foundation walls are in place. I believe on almost all the buildings. And then most of the structural work related to the walls to get it out of the ground and stuff. So sort of big hurdle there in relation to. Unforeseen emissions that are down there. So what we have in terms of the change order tonight, during the submittal review process for the oxidation, the main secondary treatment process. It's the oblong structure that has the rotating shaft aerators on it. Discovered during that process that the manufacturer needed to use the 20 horsepower motors instead of 15 horsepower motors, which were in the first design. And as a result of that, those motors needed to be increased in size to meet the aeration requirements. The VFDs, which are part of the electrical contracts of the drives that drive those, needed to be increased in size. That led to an increase in the MCC size, which is the big electrical gear that feeds all the power to those different motors. And then because that got bigger, we needed more space on the wall. So there's three things that are really encompassed in this change order that's in front of us. First is shifting one of the interior walls in that building to accommodate the extra room needed for that MCC. Making that MCC bigger, that under sections we needed to increase the size of those piers, which increased the length of that section. And then the third one's the motor. So it encompasses all of those things. It's a comprehensive package that's covered in the overall change directive. So it all comes back to you. That's the 12,780.
431.
Good memory.
I don't remember.
Pretty good.
Sorry.
Okay, so the wall movement is, so we're putting more room and more space in one room and less space. What's the adjoining room?
The garage got smaller.
Okay.
So we talked with Dean and Matt and Whitney about whether or not that would be an acceptable alternative. The other possible change would be to make the building as a whole bigger, which would have been a significant increase. I think we could have held it $3,000 or $4,000, maybe less than that, to change that interior wall. It would have been a lot more to get to add more roof, all the other big things that go with changing the exterior.
How much room do they lose in the shop part of it then?
About, I think it ended up being 20, I think they rounded it off to 2 feet exactly, to make it simpler. But I think it's supposed to be like 22, which is going in.
So what was the root cause of this that started it all? It was the size of the motors of the pumps?
Yeah, so, not to get into too many technical details.
Sure.
Basically during design, we sized everything. The manufacturers came back and told us that they needed 50 horsepower motors for these conditions. We got into the submittal phase and it was revealed that they were using the safety factor on the motor for that statement, which is not an acceptable thing to do when you're using the VFD. It's just not great design at all. So we didn't allow that. Basically, we told them they needed to upgrade that additional force to accommodate that so that the motor didn't burn up. We started talking to them about that some more. They basically explained the reasoning they had them bump up was that we had the DNR had a comment as a part of their contract, the construction permit approval process, is that we allow what's called a nitrification credit, denitrification credit for that oxygen system. So basically, we have an oxygen demand. And when you do the processes that we're doing, it forms nitrate, which is an oxygen source. And that's able to be used by the bacteria, so you get a credit for that. And so you don't have to provide as much oxygen in the form of that rotating shaft. When they got rid of that credit, they bumped them up to the next horsepower size. And nobody bought that.
The lights won't turn on.
So that's where it came back.
So the manufacturer told you originally that it was a 15 horsepower.
Yeah.
Now they're telling us we got to use the 20 horsepower.
Yep.
Well, you can use the 15, but you're worried about them not
Well,
lasting, correct?
Yeah, I mean, if you would use the 15, what would happen is that, well, you use the 15 and you put that much amperage through it, you'll burn them all up. I mean, it's basically, you'll burn them all up.
But if you put less through it, you're not gonna get the
Well,
performance you need.
It's one of these things, you're on the VFD, so you're controlling the amount of amperage that you're always going to push through it. So what ends up happening is that your VFD stops you from putting the amperage through that you want to put through. So it doesn't matter that it's trying to push that much, that VFD is going to stop it. And just through the controls. So if we had a regular starter on that, like across the line, or a reduced voltage type starter, it just take whatever it could. But the VFD is controlling it. The problem is that the design standard that you need is that you need so much oxygen transfer. So they need 20 horse to be able to give you that much oxygen transfer. So we're artificially limiting it. And what would happen if we did that and we come back and be non-compliant?
Not enough oxygen. Performance.
So we really don't have any other option
Yeah.
to update the motor.
Yep, and you anticipate this, right, or some amounts of these things in the contingency, that's why they're here. So this, thankfully it was able to be mitigated cost, so that it's not of note on the financial end for us, the change order. Of course, can't comment on the tech. Wild.
And I mean, I understand what he's saying, as much as I love engineers. It happens a lot. It's not their fault. I mean, I agree what he's saying, or I understand what he's saying, I should.
To Jerry's point, there really isn't an alternative. This is something that needs to be done if we're going to stay compliant.
Did you take the time, I mean, has this been the time to kind of recheck kind of everything then, make sure everything else was, I mean, is everything else
Yeah, I mean,
good,
well, there's so many things to be checked.
Right, but, and I'm new to this too, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the point of this middle review process. I had this conversation with Mary, first kind of learned about it. We get this, we do this information, we do this design, as a part of our first steps.
Yep.
Right? And we get that, we get design calcs back from the manufacturers saying this is what they're proposing, and this is what they're proposing to see. And then as a part of the specification process, we need to provide design calcs that justify everything as a part of the facility. So a lot of times what I get back, even during this middle phase, is something different than what I get even during the design phase, because they're providing us information, but the level of information that I'm kind of getting at that one to confirm and see and show, like, yeah, they're telling me I need a 50 horsepower motor, and they understand that it's going to be on the VFD. They've done their due diligence to size it. I'm looking at, whether or not they comply with the spec and whether or not they get, other installations and they're a good provider and things. And we go through and we do that again during the final design just to make sure that we're not missing something like this. And luckily, I think the contractor on this has been like incredibly helpful in trying to come up with just ways to do this simply and adjust it without needing, this process right here, where we have this change order, those walls were already kind of poured 3 weeks ago. We had a work change director, the city knew what was going on. In terms of like them being able to be responsive, get us pricing, get everything back, know that what they need to order and everything else keeps us on schedule. They recognize these things. They recognize how these things happen, and they've been responsive in helping us find out whether or not that's a reasonable solution or not reasonable solution.
Good, thank you.
So the action to the council is to approve this change order. If any other discussion, now's a good time. Otherwise, we could take a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the wastewater treatment facility change order number 1.
Doug, aye.
Karen, I.
John, aye. Jerry, aye.
Mike, aye.
Motion carries with 5. Eldon, thanks so much for being here and
Thank you.
the challenge to get here and participate with us.
Sorry.
So if I can ask, just your assessment, how we doing on schedule?
On schedule, they seem to be doing right on. So we have, I can actually do that, hold up, that paper, that's good. I think it's a July, I think they have a July 31st.
I see a June 28, ready for final payment.
Yeah, so June 20th, sorry.
Okay,
So that would be, well, that'd be the final thing. There's a milestone number 1, which is July of this year, or August of this year.
December 31st, 20.
December of this, yeah, so the contractor has a July and August nearly done, kind of complete starting up equipment state. So we'd be in like August and September, we'd be doing like checkout equipment, so things like that. So they're well ahead of that schedule to be able to start up the new plan. And then from there, it's just plugging up everything. So after that, kind of like that milestone, basically you were running that plan. After that milestone, they have they have the remainder of that schedule to do, like finish grading, seeding, if they need to do that in spring, they can get it done in the fall.
okay.
So they have all that time, and then all the sludge removal, or the sludge disposal will likely be a spring activity. So they have all that kind of up to the site, make sure everything's running correctly. Kind of gives you guys a little bit of leverage too, because it should be operating, right? Everything should be operating, and they'll still be on site if anything pops up. So they're not trying to grab them, get them on site for some of these small performance warrants that stuff that happens for the first year of operation.
Very good. Thanks, Eldon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On that sludge disposal, is there any way we can work with the DNR to try to be able to let them apply some of that? Keep costs down?
So we kind of met with, I mean, we had samples from the cell number 1 and cell number 4, which are the larger cells that have the most sludge, and they're all capped out on aluminum. They're like twice the limit. So we've gone round and round on that. Not to say that we couldn't go again, and we've actually talked with the nutrient subcontractor who's assigned that work. To try and see if there's ways that they could do it, but just the scale of what's in those 2 largest cells as compared to the other cells that have, like this much sludge as opposed to this much sludge, and they're acres larger. It just didn't financially pan out to say, I'm gonna go find a field for that. Maybe a 40-acre field for that, but I still have to truck all of this, the magnitude of what's in the other ones, which is hard. So I would like to do that. We try to go through that during the design process to make that work. All right. Just not finding a good spot.
Thank you. Thanks.
Excellent. Thanks, Eldon.
So an internal issue, how is Matt coming along with his training?
Good. We're hoping that he can, test here. He gets credit for building the plan, or he's part of the building plan. So he needs those credits before he can test. So hopefully when they're, later this year. It's good. I mean, if
Can we?
On schedule.
COVID maybe glass half full, I mean, he had a little bit of extra time at home than we anticipated.
Can we set a deadline so this doesn't keep getting strung out?
Yeah, we sure can. And he's, like I said, he needs those, he has to have the CUs before the legal letter test. So he's not able to test yet anyways, but yeah, I mean, I think timelines help us all.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think we need to put a timeline together
Yeah.
for him, so he has a deadline to get it done.
Absolutely.
All right. That'll wrap up the discussion then on the wastewater treatment facility change order. Good discussion there. I'm going to go back to item 4F, where we set public hearing date for the fiscal year 22 budget. The budget is in the board doc.
Yeah, so I want to talk, I know this is kind of the first time, this is awkward timing, we haven't been able to discuss this, so it's what we need to do tonight, and we are asking to set the budget for the last meeting in March, so like a month from now. So we have some time, again, for just with all the excitement of the last couple of months, we haven't been able to discuss this as thoroughly as we would like. So really though, this budget in front of you is as I presented at the workshop. The only difference is, you'll recall we received a notification from ICAP that our insurance rate is getting blown up. And John probably provides some narrative, but essentially derecho, wildfires, riots, the market is not good.
Can you,
John, is that the fairest way to describe that?
Yeah, it's a mess right now.
Yeah.
I mean, all that stuff wrapped up into one. I mean, someone's got to pay for it. Unfortunately, they spread it on everybody equally.
Right, yeah, and we just happened to be, of course, not really, I mean, we didn't have any claims related to anything like that, but, that doesn't really matter. No bonus for good behavior.
Nope.
so can you quantify the impact? How many dollars or what % increase are we talking?
So they have said it's a minimum of 15%. They said prepare for a minimum of 15% plus the loss of our dividends. They pay like
It's usually around 2,000 a
Yeah.
year.
So we integrated that, when we took that increase and just flopped it, added it into the budget we already have, that produces this rate of 826. That's what we need to discuss. We haven't had the ability to discuss that yet. Now, when we put this in there, I would sense got the information from the county, Asbury, from Dubuque, from everybody around us is generally dropping their levies. So again, this is a political discussion, but so when we revert back to the 813, which is what we reviewed, that can work, that's very tight. I would feel like I was not totally doing my job if I didn't say that, which makes sense because we know that because of the TIF we collected, that reduces the amount that's available to the general fund. So at $8.13, our cash into the general fund is actually reduced 2%. Negative 2% less cash into the general fund than we had last year. By merit of a growing community, going backwards in general fund operations is just difficult. So and again, it was initially prepared that way. It can be done. We have it, it works. It doesn't blow anything up. It doesn't destroy any reserve funds, but it would not provide extra space for
Emergencies.
Right. And Karen probably, I mean, it's your administration department, so.
No.
I mean, that's kind of the crux of the conversation. So again, we already had the budget prepared, so when we got that from ICAP, Karen and I sat down and discussed and said, okay, well, let's add this in and see what it looks like. So I guess I feel led to just provide you this information. I don't know that I even so much have a recommendation as I just more or less want you guys to all be aware of what kind of environment we're in. Because Peosta and Jones does a very good job of conservatively managing the levy. But the reality is we have some growth, mostly residential, which, we're only able to tax on about half of that. And that general fund was just reduced by several $1 million in terms of what was available to us to tax for the general fund. So we can reduce that revenue by 2%, but you're familiar enough to know our operations to know that we're not really in a reduction way. It can be done as and I know it is, it's a lot of other communities are having the same conversation. It's just, it's political, businesses are kind of in, it's just not a great year to raise taxes, quite frankly, without, pulling all the professional garb up, that's not a good year. So if we,
So the ICAP was an increase of, you said roughly 15% minus dividends, and dollar for dollar, do you know roughly what that looks like?
oh, no, I don't.
And is that what's really pushing us from the 213 to maybe go higher? Is that the tipping scale?
Well, yeah, that's generally, I wouldn't say that's when we changed it, when we got that, because it was already,
Tight?
I'd say we were already tight, wouldn't you say? And so it was already like, well, and we knew that collecting that tip in Heidi's analysis that she provided, again, 2 months ago from Northland, to keep our general fund at exactly the same cash influx with a 2% inflationary increase. She had projected or so this 825, 826 would be if you wanted to consider or continue at a regular cadence of here's what we bring in the general fund, 2% inflationary for all expenses. This is what that puts us at. But again, I don't want you to think that has how it has to be, because that's just flat not true. And I'm sure a lot of cities are in the same position where they're just saying we're choosing to hold the line because of the environment. And we certainly know, with the projects we have in upcoming years, that this would be a survive for fiscal 20.
So if we want to help fight against any type of increase on insurance, which seems to be the tipping point, what I'm hearing, the other option is to fight the increase in the insurance versus raising taxes. So what I would suggest is, if we've got a month, is maybe take a look at deductibles and putting more risk on us, and seeing if, whatever, I don't even know what we insure this building for. If we've got $1,000 deductible on it, I guarantee that if we have a piece of damage that's $1,000, we're not turning to our insurance company.
Yeah, quite frankly, I'm unhappy with all of our health insurance renewal was here.
But so I think maybe instead of, I don't want to say the knee-jerk reaction, but a reaction of instantly changing that,
Yeah.
let's maybe take a look and see what we'd be comfortable with.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's, again, when we discussed this and Karen integrated all these numbers in the budget, this would be better if we would have had a work session.
So, John, we don't really have a month because we do have to publish. However.
I'm sorry, say that again?
I said we don't really have a month because we have to publish.
Okay.
We have to publish soon. It's a minimum of 10 days before the public hearing, which is why we pushed it back a month. But I always like to have that there to the post or to the paper a little bit early in case there's type of a misprint or miscommunication or anything like that can happen. It doesn't happen very often, but it can happen. But I guess that being said, we can publish at higher, we just can't have anything higher. So we could publish at this if we could still be doing the legwork on that and adopt it at a lower.
But we don't want to publish the number. We can publish anytime, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So how much time would we have to work on the insurance?
A week.
Yeah, but could we discuss it at the work session next week?
Yes.
I don't think it moved that much.
Well, I know that we looked at it, we were insuring some stuff, we were insuring pipe.
Yeah, quite honestly, based on, because we had them remove a bunch of stuff. Yeah, I don't know. You're the expert. I wouldn't be, I mean, you and Adam will probably talk to me tomorrow, and by the end of that conversation, I think you'll be able to tell you whether this is effort in vain or not. Again, because it's, from my understanding, it is clearly their actuaries sitting in their queue, all their losses. It's, sorry, buddy.
Purely a mathematical equation.
Right, yeah, I don't think that, so, and again, that's okay, it's more about the conversation of this thing and other things like that, you know, all the costs across the city, there's a lot of them. They don't go down, costs never go down,
Right.
so as again, we continue to grow, we've added staff, good chunks of staff to hold that 813 is just increasingly tightening the old belt, which is again a choice. I just want to make sure we are consciously making, and that it's not, you know, just happening. You guys don't feel like you know what's going on.
I think it's worth having a conversation with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think.
I'd love to talk to whoever we could.
There's a lot more conversation needed.
I mean, it's not gonna hurt us. If we've got a week, like I said, we could probably have something hammered out.
Yeah, it's just, it's gotta be by the code of Iowa, we have to publish it. We can't publish it more than 20 days, so we couldn't publish it tomorrow, but it has to be no more than 20, but no less than 10 days before the March 23rd public hearing.
If Adam could call me this week, we could.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, and I felt bad for him. And I thought of you, because I think all the times you have to deliver this news, I was like, don't be very mean to the agent.
He gets paid fine.
And it's just, of course, this is on the heels so that they already, right, were bumping our. So that's part of it, is it's not just this increase, we just got nailed when they did the revaluation. So that's where it's not a single faceted increase there. And of course, their cycle doesn't, we're November?
November 1st.
Yeah, we're in November, I mean, their cycles don't line up with our budget, so it's a little.
I guess from that, when you said is at a minimum, it's 15%, how do we determine what it would be?
Well, I don't know honestly, but they know, I think that, again, we don't renew till November, but they know cities are doing budgets, so I think it was their, oh, poop moment, we gotta, and it was just like a letter like, hey, house.
Right, because if it's 30%, it's, you know, it's another, you know what I mean? I mean, I don't know.
Typically, they have to send non-renewal notices if it's more than.
We're gonna
I think-
start the renewal process in like June.
Yeah.
It's a process, so we have a bunch of information that they request, revenues, expenditures, capital projects. There's just a ginormous amount of work that goes into this renewal, starting in June or July. And then from there, you know, we review again all the property, make sure all the values are correct. All the property, all the equipment is on there as it should be. And then it's about August that we get that back to ICAP. And then we go through it with them, and that's when we really start working on getting that range.
Right, I think in PNC world, if they give more than in the state of Iowa, 25% increase, they have to send out a notice of non-renewal or conditional non-renewal or.
Okay.
So if you get that, then you're looking at closer to 25, 30.
That's the really bad letter.
Right.
This is
I think that's the same as.
I don't know if,
I have to do it myself. I think it's the same thing. I think.
would a pool have to do that though, John?
Sorry?
Would a pool have to do that?
Yes, any insurance company, if,
But ICAP's not an insurance company, it's a pool.
Either way, we won't know for sure what our rate is.
Right.
Until a long time from now. So again, I think they're projecting.
So we set a public hearing date or not?
Yeah, that's the action in front of us. Thanks for bringing that back to the agenda, Karen.
Well, so here's what we know for sure, that yes, we have to hold a public hearing that last meeting in March. That's not an option. So, but right, what we send to we can take more time determining what we're gonna send, what budget we're gonna do.
The 23rd long enough? You have to have it by the 23rd?
We have to
You have to
have it,
have it on the 23rd.
unless you want to hold a special meeting.
I don't want to do that.
Another one.
No, it's gotta be done by the 31st of March by
By statute, so.
Right, so technically, you have to wait, but of course, we don't really wanna. I mean, this isn't, there's not, honestly, there's not a ton of time needed, we just probably need a little more time that you want, or you guys need some time that you want, I mean, it's.
So this shows 8.1, right?
No,
Last page.
Last page, go to the last page.
Yep, I did.
well, if you're on the first page, down at the bottom,
Yeah.
it's 8.26.
Okay. And you were saying 813?
Is where we're at.
813 is where we're at and where we were at for the last 3 years.
Yes.
They were at 825 years prior to that, and then at some point it went down to 8. So again, this is really, this isn't massive dollars. This is
Yeah.
more about the tone you want to set than the actual.
From tax year 16 through tax year 18. So for 3 consecutive years, our combined general obligation plus debt service was 8.251. Then in tax year 19 and tax year 20, it went to 8.131. And then this year it's 8.135.
It's the reason it went down was because valuations went up so much.
Correct.
So it wasn't a reduction in the operating budget, it was
No,
lower
it's
tax.
just like this year, the rollback isn't the same amount, so it's gonna bring the taxes up. And that's part of the reason.
Yeah, I mean, there are unfortunately so many
It
factors.
doesn't really have anything to do with insurance.
What?
I don't think it really, what they're doing, I don't think really has a lot to do with the insurance for the budget wise, the tax levy.
The dollars brought in does.
Yeah, so we had to tell the budget, ICAP just said, we need this much more money.
So we did so many other things with that budget that changed it.
Yeah, well, you're
Insurance really
definitely
doesn't
right
have a
that
lot to do with it.
there's a ton of factors that affect how the rate filters out, when she's talking about the rollback changes how much the owners and tax or not tax, we have no control of that.
So we're gonna go through that at the work session, right?
Yeah, I think that would be the best.
Yep.
Really, like our first budget work session, obviously overflow it, so we really just need the.
So right now we need a motion for the date that we're gonna have a public.
Yeah, just that we're gonna.
I'll make a motion to have the public hearing on March 23rd.
Second. Doug, aye.
You're not.
Mike, aye.
Motion carries with 5. That might be the longest motion to set a date that we've ever had. But important discussion, and I value it for that. All right, moving down the agenda, item 4G, Planning and Zoning Commission ordinance. This takes 3 readings. The first reading was approved on February 9th. So we will again present this for a public reading. If I may paraphrase, the essence of this is it's a change to our ordinance to allow one commission member, one planning and zoning commission member to reside outside, and I'll quote here, may be a resident of the area outside of the city over which the zoning jurisdiction of the city has been extended. So our commission of 5 previously all were required to live inside the city limits. This allows one of those 5 to live outside, but within the area over which the zoning jurisdiction has been extended. I don't believe there were any other changes to the ordinance. Is that correct? That was the only change of substance.
I'll make a motion to approve the Planning and Zoning Commission ordinance.
Second reading
It's the second reading.
Second reading, yes.
and a roll call vote.
Doug, aye.
Aye.
John, I,
Mike, aye.
All
are
right.
we able to waive the 3rd reading?
It's up to you.
I make the motion to waive the third reading of the Planning and Zoning Commission ordinance.
I'll second.
Doug, aye.
Karen, I.
John, I.
Jerry, aye.
Mike, aye.
And then we would need a motion to adopt.
I'll make a motion to adopt the Planning and Zoning Commission ordinance.
Second.
Doug, aye.
Karen, I.
John, I.
Jerry, aye.
Mike, aye.
So third reading waived with 5 and ordinance passed or accepted with 5.
As the planning and zoning administrator, I probably just would want to request that we consider filling those seats or my seat at either one of the March meetings, because the commission will have to meet in April on our next urban renewal amendment.
And there is one seat up for reappointment as of April 1. So really you're going to need to fill 2 seats. The vacant Deb McDonough's seat is up for reappointment. So that'll have to be done.
Do we have anybody interested in the first seat?
I've had a couple conversations, yes.
Yes, okay, good. Okay.
All right, moving on to 4H, resolution approving contract with Lynch Dallas PC for municipal services. Whitney, this probably would benefit from just a short narrative.
Yes, absolutely. So as we get involved in really some more in-depth and technical and strategic city management maneuvers, we're finding that our legal needs are just increasing. And the complexity of the issues we're facing are getting, it's just getting very difficult. So Lynch Dallas is a firm that offers a lot of attorneys with various specialties. It's a benefit at this point to have a large firm that is not near Dubuque, as we could potentially look at, actions that could just result in some contentious issues or some items that we would want to really tackle head on. So of course, having a completely unbiased firm could be a nice benefit for something like that. So the attorney who will be the lead contact for us also as a city administrator in Monticello. So that's a really nice perk for us as a staff, because he's very in tune with when we bring items to him, he already has a good idea of what has probably precipitated that, and also what specific actions we on the implementation side for us. But I'm most excited about the specialties and the diversity that we have access to would be a nice benefit for the city as we really look at doing some things that will be unusual for communities of our size and sort of unprecedented.
I'm assuming you've talked to them, worked with them in the past.
Yes. Yep.
And references of other cities using them.
Great experience.
What impact does this decision have on our budgeting for legal services?
Really, it's negligible. None. I would say none. The attorney rate is a slight elevation, but the other rates, which actually you end up usually having more paralegal support staff time, are the same. So we're anticipating no change. And he's very efficient, so that's.
Make a motion to approve the resolution, approve the contract for municipal attorney services with Lynch Dallas.
Second. Doug, aye.
Karen, I.
John, I. Jerry, aye.
Mike, aye.
Karen, can you clarify? I didn't hear this.
That's because I didn't really say much.
Did you say aye or no?
I.
Aye. Okay, thank you for clarifying. So if I heard that right, the motion passes with 5?
Yep.
The last item was a wastewater treatment facility, which we already talked about. So that wraps up the agenda other than our closing citizen comment. So we've still got a few community members on the virtually, and Mr. Conlon is still in the room with us. Anything you'd like to add, sir? Okay. Thanks for joining us.
I was on the council and we're not every 8 years. Brings up a lot of memories.
Good and otherwise, right?
So you don't have any questions, huh?
Interesting.
New faces, but same,
Changed a lot, but yet it hasn't changed.
yeah, same issues, right? Yeah. How about online? Is there anybody who wants to speak to the council at this time? All right, hearing nothing, I will extend our appreciation for the engagement tonight. Great to have some outside participants in the meeting. Really do like the community engagement. So with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.